Morning, guys. So we are leaving the shelter this morning. What was it, the Tom Horn Shelter or something? This shelter's got big problems. So for those of you coming behind, there is standing water like everywhere, and I don't mean standing water because it's been raining. It hasn't been raining the last several days. There are springs that have apparently popped up that were not here originally, and as a consequence, they're just pouring water all the time up towards the privy, then down in this area where unfortunately all the tent sites are literally right over here. And so even now the mosquitoes, even now the mosquitoes are getting really bad. In July or August, this water, even if it's drier, this water, I think you're still gonna have standing water in here. I mean, it is all, look at this, all through here, all into this, back into the woods and stuff. And the reason is because there are just active springs that have apparently shifted over time. And so this area is now like literally becoming a bit of a swamp. It is not going to be a comfortable or even healthy environment in a short period of time. It's really not now. So you might want to think about skipping this shelter. The shelter itself is just a small, I showed it to you, it's just a small, nothing of a shelter anyway. There's supposedly a halfway sign like 50 yards from this shelter here on the AT. So now you see all this is dried up, but back there, yeah, it's all super damp, super wet. There's a beautiful stream right there, so it's a great water source, but guys, you might want to think about seriously about skipping this one. It's not great for you. Anyway, there was supposed to be a halfway AT sign here that I think was all the way back from like 2011, but it was an actual sign, which we don't have. So it'd be sort of nice to do that. I mean, as you saw, I just wrote in the dirt the mileage and used that, but I mean, halfway is, isn't insignificant. It seems like there'd be a little bit more effort to celebrate it than this. Wow, guys. Sort of a rough start this morning. I think it's because it's been dry for the last 2 days. I don't really expect to be walking up to my ankles in water. Hey, when it's raining and it's pouring water, okay, you sort of expect that, and it's just what you're gonna accept for the day. But literally, I know that once I get out of this little swamp around this shelter, everything's gonna be perfectly dry, and yet I'd be soaked. So I apologize, bear with me as we try to get off to a start this morning. Okay, so I think we're good. All right, so plan for today. Well, we're 3.5 miles from the ice cream challenge, which I'm not interested in, but it is a place for some food and some resupply, short-term resupply, and mine's going to be really short-term. I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to do today, so here's the situation. Okay, we did 21.8 yesterday with 1 mile of Blue Blaze coming out of the South Mountain Hotel Tavern. Perfectly fine for me and for Webster and for shortcuts, but a little bit rougher on the new folks. So as a consequence, we're dealing with a little bit of hurt feet and sore feet or whatever, blisters and things. So we have 22 miles from that shelter to Bowling Springs. This is Memorial Day weekend. Today's Friday. And so either way, we're dealing with a Friday or a Saturday on Memorial Day weekend getting into Bowling Springs. That's reality. If it's just up to me, hiking my own hike, I'm probably doing the 22 miles today. Spend a little bit of time this morning, maybe with the guys, just watching them do the ice cream challenge. Oh. Okay, so stand by.
That's cool.
Oh, you're moving.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do a picture. Okay. Sorry, getting off to a little bit of a fits and starts this morning. Okay, so where are we? Today, as you saw, we just sort of finished up the whole sort of process of hitting the halfway point. So we are beyond the halfway point, moving north. The next quite a few miles here are really quite flat and easy going. Could be traditionally big miles until we start to get to the rocks. All right, between us, next real stop will be Boiling Springs. Okay, Boiling Springs right now is 22 miles away from the shelter we just left. There is, I'd say, a 50% chance that I will go to Boiling Springs today. There is probably a 30% chance that the reason that it's sort of 50-50 is this. Yesterday did 21.8 miles with the 1 mile Blue Blaze with the crew. Except for Shortcuts, who has Kevin, his buddy, with him. They did a slightly different mileage because they started out, they went to a shelter and started out at a different location. Okay. From that, it seems like Pale Rider is doing pretty well. You know, he knows he's done a 21 miler because he's a little bit sore, but overall, pretty good shape. It seems like Beekeeper developed blisters on both feet and is having foot issues this morning. I don't think it'd be healthy for her to try to do a 22-mile day on top of that, or even slightly shorter than that. Okay, so brings us to the point that we've been at with a number of different groups, and that is each one of us is hiking our own hike. I mean, at the end of the day, Beekeeper came out here only 7 days ago, started at Harper's Ferry, fitting good with the group. We weren't a group before anyway, so fitting good with the group, and seems to be happy kicking along with us, and us with her. But she is definitely going to be shorter miles today. When I asked the guys this morning what they wanted to do, Webster and Pale Rider said they were looking to do 18. And I made the comment that I think they would drop people off if they did 18. And they sort of glanced at each other. So I'm getting the sense that we're maybe coming to the conclusion of this group hiking together. So I'm just sort of prepping myself for what is in my best interest as far as miles and health and everything. I'd like to keep the 20s. 22 into Boiling Springs would put me there late in the evening, which sort of sucks for, I don't want to do a 0. I'm not going to do a 0. I'd like to narrow in, narrow out. Maybe I'd pull up just a few miles short at 20. I think there's a tent site somewhere around 19 or 20, and then narrow in and out Saturday to Sunday. That seems like the best option for me. However, as a courtesy, not as a commitment to the group, I'd be more than willing to pull up short at, say, 15 or something, so that Kevin and Beekeeper, who seem to be having, maybe a little bit more issues than the others, could take a little bit of an easier day today, but we would be short enough, 5 miles or so, to narrow in and out of Boiling Springs. But like I said, it seems as though there may be some movement towards the group sort of dissipating. And that is the reality. I've had a great experience with all these guys. I said yesterday, no issue on my part. We separate. If some of us get back together or see each other later on down the trail, it's taking good memories away from this hiking period. The other, of course, side of that would be, for the first time, a very conscious decision to act as a group in consideration of some members, which is sort of the linchpin to maybe a more of a tramily sort of being established. So we'll just see what happens there. I'm looking to Nero into Boiling Springs, stay overnight, and then do a full day the following day. That way I don't lose a whole day. I don't do a zero, but I get the most meals in I can, at least a lunch, a dinner, and a breakfast. And I can't really say a good night's sleep because I'm telling you what, la-di-da-di, I have slept the last 2 nights. Hey, it may not be 8 or 10 hours, but I never really did that, so I am really jazzed. But I will also need to do some laundry, definitely. You know, it's been 3 or 4 days, something like that, 3 or 4, I think it will be 4 days when I get in there, since I've had a shower. I am doing that sort of cowboy washing, so, you know, I'm at least not totally gritty and dirty, but I still smell like the north end of a southbound mule. I don't know if this has a name like the Bone Crusher or the Thru-Hiker Crusher or the something Hiker Crusher or something. But it was unique. I figured I'd take a picture of it for you as we go through it. So yeah, this is sort of the introduction, I understand, to Rocksylvania. Trying to, okay, do this without busting myself up the first day. Okay, that was good. No torn up knees or whatnot heretofore. Okay, looking good. Okay, I would say we just finished our first exposure to Rocksylvania. Yeah, you sort of have, you know, the Virginia rocks and North Carolina rocks and stuff coming up to, which is essentially a cliff of rocks. It's a bit of an, I think it's a bit of an artificial obstacle, but what I loved about it was that, like, you'll remember back when I did Sobo on the Dragon's Tooth, it took me back to my college days of some rock climbing, and you get that tactile feel of actually putting your poles down and using your hands and knees and feet and everything to, you know, actually climb some of the rocks. So in this segment we had to do that, and I think that's just probably the prelude to what's to come. So, you know, we'll see how it goes over the whole course of the rest of the state, but I must admit that I look at the trail sort of in 2 parts. You have the southern section, and then you have the New England section, I call it. So Pennsylvania up, I expect to be more of these, you know, I don't know that they're actually granite, but, you know, granite rocks, getting much more hands-on with the rocks, whereas the South was much more of the true traditional trail style mountains. Just humping up them, poles in hand, hanging over them, and just grinding up to the top. And here I see it as much more technical, or, you know, not sure, I don't know about Pennsylvania yet, but I'm just thinking, you know, as we go to the whites and everything. So I dare say my view of the rocks will probably be a little bit different here than they were in, say, North Carolina or Virginia, where they seem to be just part of water washes and just more of an annoyance. But here, I definitely feel like every time I hit one of these, you know, rocky areas, it's just prepping me for, you know, basically New Hampshire and Maine.
Howdy.
Well, I know, it may be.
I'm gonna.
I'll cut you out, Steve. Don't worry.
Did you finish before?
I gotta get Chris and his soup sandwich and friggin' ramen over here into video.
Soup sandwich?
I love
You got this, Chris.
Yeah, they're not playing like rookies. Yeah.
No.
Playing like seasoned veterans.
What was his game plan there? Is to mix the pint with the soup?
So, for those of you who don't think we have a special ed class, here it is.
That's not a good strategy.
It's only gonna get hotter. Worse.
I can't take more of this flavor with this.
They moved the bottle.
He's like, I'm tasting the flavor.